How's it going, YouTube? Today we're talking speakers. Now if you're a guitar player and you want your combo amp to sound better, the easiest upgrade to do, often for the least amount of money, is to swap out the speaker. Now vintage speakers can help make your combo amp sound great for not very much money. You don't have to drop hundreds of dollars on a modern reproduction of a vintage speaker when every day people are throwing out speakers that are great. You can find these speakers in console radios, organs, tabletop radios, portable record players, projectors. You can find these at thrift stores, you could find them at yard sales. Let's talk about identifying the speaker. Every speaker manufactured in the 50s and 60s, and even up to today, has a code on it that will identify who made it and when they made it. As you can see on this vintage speaker here, 220 is the manufacturer code. 220 would be a Jensen speaker. Well, I can tell that from the label that's on it, but you could also read it from the code. If you look at a speaker closely, you can tell some of them have a lot of ridges, some of them have fewer ridges, some of them are nearly entirely smooth. Each of those will affect the sound of the speaker. This is why it's so much fun to experiment with different vintage speakers, because they'll all have different sound profiles. Now you want to make sure your speaker is going to fit in the cabinet that you have and that the load is correct, but generally speaking, for a tube amp, you can actually, if you have a 4 ohm output transformer on a tube amp, you could run a speaker up to 8 ohms or maybe down to 2 ohms. You wouldn't want to go any less than that or any more than the 8 ohms, but as a general rule of thumb, you can do half or double what your output transformer is rated at and still be fine. Now you also want to make sure that power handling is going to be enough. One easy way to consider if the power output is going to work for your situation is to consider the application that the speaker came out of. If it was a portable record player that had a single 66 output tube, then you know that a similarly sized amplifier is going to work great. Now that you've found a speaker that's physically the right size, the load is about correct, and the power handling is going to be appropriate for the application you'd like to use it for, you need to inspect the speaker to make sure it's not damaged. One way to inspect the speaker is to hold it up to a light. If you hold it up to the light and you can see cracks through it, you can see the tiny places where tears will cause a problem. Now you need to be careful with the vintage speakers in that the paper cones are often pretty fragile. They work great in the amp with your guitar, but they're easy to poke a hole in with your finger or with a cord in the back of a combo amp. Now these two speakers here have damage that I'm going to repair today. This speaker here just has a tiny little hole on the edge. That'll be easy to fix. This speaker here has a tear there, a hole there, and a tear there. That'll take a little bit more time, but I'm still not ready to give up on this little guy. So I'm going to show you how I would approach fixing these. What you're going to want to do is get your Elmer's glue, some tissue paper, and some scissors. Take your Elmer's glue and make basically like a little band-aid. I'm going to go ahead and apply it on the back side of the speaker. One thing I like to do is take a little paintbrush with a little glue on it, and you can make sure that you wet the entire bandage so that the glue spreads through the whole thing. Also, that'll help it to lay flat. Now I'm going to do one more little bandage. I'm going to add one more layer. Alright, this one's done. Now I'm going to move on to the next one. This one's a little bit more challenging. It has a tear going this way and a rip right here. But I'm going to do the same thing. I'll glue it up from the back, and then I'll come around to the front and I'll put another layer of tissue paper and glue on it, and it should be good. So here we go. Alright, now in this case, since there's such a fine tear right there, and I've reinforced the back, and this speaker is ribbed right here so much, I think rather than putting a band-aid on this side, I'm just going to add a little glue and water together and allow the glue to hold those two pieces together, since it is supported on the back side. So we'll just add a little bit of glue and water in here. Now we need to address these bigger holes right here. But again, same process. Just cut a little strip of tissue paper, add a little bit of glue from the back side, and then come around to the front. Since this spot here had a hole in it, I'm going to put another piece of tissue paper on top. I'm going to let this dry and it'll be ready to go. Well, there you go. That's all there is to it. A little Elmer's glue, a brush, a little water, some tissue paper. Now all that's left to do is to drop these into your amp and see which one you like the most. Speaking of liking, now's a good time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with somebody, or leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching.